We talk a lot about beloved community in UU spaces, but what do we actually mean by it? And how does it enhance our lives? Beloved community isn't just about the life of our particular congregation. That's certainly part of it, though. Dr. Martin Luther King said, "To create a beloved community will require a qualitative change in our souls as well as a quantitative change in our lives." Beloved community is something we build together quietly and intentionally. It's something we learn to embrace not just as an idea, but as a daily way of being with one another. It doesn't arise simply because people gather in a room. It begins with an invitation. You belong. You matter. It deepens through trust, conflict, and reconciliation. And being part of a healthy, supportive community can quite literally save a life. And I don't just mean for trans people or people of color. I realize this is a bold statement, so I'd like to share with you a story that I heard over this past summer at CERSI, which is the Central East Region Summer Institute. This is a UU family camp. The Reverend Joanna Fontaine shared this story, and it stayed with me. So to begin, let's go on a journey to Roseto Valfatore, Italy. This is a very tiny mining town that's for slate and other stone, but it's a difficult place to make a living. And in 1882, 11 men decide to come to America, where mining is an industry in Pennsylvania. The men find work and they begin to send for their families. And little by little, the people of Roseto Valfatore join their cousins in Pennsylvania. Businesses start to spring up. They start farms, they raise pigs. They begin a village. And so is born Roseto, Pennsylvania. Now let's fast forward to the 1950s. Dr. Stuart Wolf, a physician and researcher, comes to Pennsylvania for a conference. He meets a colleague who makes a peculiar comment about a town that he serves, Roseto. There are no patients under the age of 65 with heart disease. Now, this is the 1950s. This is before cholesterol-lowering medicine. Heart disease is the leading cause of death for those under 65. Dr. Wolf can't shake this idea. How is this actually possible? So he approaches the mayor and the city council, and he says, "I'd like to research your town because it seems like you all have found the fountain of youth, and let's share that with the rest of the world." The mayor eagerly agrees, gives him an office down at the city hall, and they start interviewing people, taking family history, drawing blood, trying to find clues. And what they find is astonishing. No one under 55 in this town has had a heart attack. Those over 65, if they have any heart-related illness at all, have it at half of the national norm. And the death rate is 30 to 35% lower than the national average. So first, being medical doctors, they assume something genetic is going on, and they check some other Roseto Valfatorians who landed in other parts of America. And those folks have the same national rates of heart disease, so it's not genetics. And then they look at the environment, the ground, the water. The neighboring towns don't show any anomaly. So they realize they need to look beyond the biology. Dr. Wolf brings in a sociologist, John Broome. He brings in a dietitian. And maybe you're thinking, oh, Italian diet, Mediterranean food. No, these were not wealthy people. They raised pigs. They cooked with lard. Olive oil was expensive. What they finally determined was this: they were living in a tightly knit intergenerational community. And this is what that looked like. They all went to church together. Their lives were deeply intertwined. Intergenerational households, elders never left isolated, children never without multiple adults caring, fussing, mentoring, feeding, encouraging. If you had to go to work in the mines, someone else checked in on your aging mother, made sure that she ate, kept her company. And if you were the aging person, you knew that someone would care for you. The health benefit wasn't just direct like bringing a meal or a visit. It was the absence of the chronic stress we feel today around aging, childcare, and survival. They didn't carry that burden alone. It was not all up to the family to care for the family. This anomaly is now known as the Rossetto effect. How we care for each other has an actual physical price when we don't do this. In 2023, which was only 2 years ago, people, the Surgeon General released a warning about a loneliness epidemic. So the Surgeon General, this is a medical issue, not a sociological one. And I'm going to read a quote from that press release. The epidemic of loneliness and isolation has been an underappreciated public health crisis. Our relationships are a source of healing and well-being, hiding in plain sight. Given the significant health consequences of loneliness and isolation, we must prioritize building social connection the way we have prioritized other critical public health issues like obesity and smoking. So let's take a look at the data. The physical health consequences of poor or insufficient connection include a 29% increased risk of heart disease, a 32% increased risk of stroke, a 50% increased risk of developing dementia for older adults. Lacking social connection increases risk of premature death by more than 60%. So when I tell you that being part of a healthy congregation, a healthy community can literally save your life, I mean that. Beloved community is a term that was popularized by Dr. Martin Luther King. He imagined a society transformed by love and justice, where hunger, poverty, and hate are eliminated, and all people can live in freedom and equality. He envisioned a beloved community where the races would be reconciled and the deep wounds of racism would be healed. Our ultimate goal, King said, is genuine intergroup and interpersonal living integration. Physical desegregation is not enough, for it leaves us spiritually segregated, where elbows are together and our hearts are apart. We can put our hearts together and build the beloved community right here in this congregation. We can choose to embrace it with our actions, our presence, and our willingness to show up for one another, even when you're tired and might be on too many committees. If a trans teen feels safe in our congregation, but not the grocery store or the library, then that's not enough. Beloved community expands beyond our walls. It's remembering someone's pronouns. It's calling to check in on someone who's sick. It's recognizing the humanity in those who are different from us, the elderly person who moves slowly, the neighbor with disabilities, the stranger who comes to service for the first time. Beloved community calls us to push past our assumption and fears and widen the circle again and again until everyone has a place within it. Beloved community is not something we practice. It's also something that catches us, something that holds us when we cannot stand on our own. When I was offered the opportunity to give my talk today, I knew that I wanted to speak about beloved community because I wanted to say thank you. I have become the wealthiest person that I know, not in terms of my bank account, though I wish, but what I think of as my love credit. And I do want to speak about where this wealth comes from. 18 months ago, my family suffered a tragic loss. My husband died by suicide after a struggle with mental illness. And when I had that moment where I found him and I got off the phone with 911, I called my mother. I don't remember who I called next. My brother Jim came barreling through my front door and gave me the biggest hug. Within minutes, my whole family was in my living room at 6 o'clock in the morning. They were all there with me. All day, I reached just hold me, hug me, cry with me, just be with me. And the more I reached in the weeks and months and followed, the more love that came back to me to catch me. Because there is some pain so great, it is impossible to hold, and I didn't have to. You don't have to. We don't have to. I am beyond grateful for the generosity and kindness that carried us. We were held up by mountains of cards and calls and texts. Other parents stopped in to help with my children. My sister, who's sitting on the bench over there, she quietly kept watch over me to see who was staying with me, so I'd never had to sleep alone. People brought food, so much food. And if you know me, you know I love to cook. That just evaporated. There was a very generous GoFundMe, and I remain deeply, humbly grateful for that support. I was blessed with more DoorDash gift cards than I could count. But because of the shock and the fog, I couldn't figure out how to order a hamburger. But I could call somebody and say, can you help me figure out dinner tonight? My brain's not quite working today. And to me, that is the wealth of beloved community, the kind of abundant care that no amount of money can buy. I was already in a UU faith practice in Long Island, so I didn't come to services for very long before I had signed the membership book here. And just a few weeks after that, my husband passed. You didn't know me, and you held me. You brought meals to my house. You texted, you met me for walks. And now I hold you. I joined the worship committee, and I've also joined the board as a trustee. I hope to contribute to the good that this congregation does. This has become a chosen village, a chosen family. What we create here is not just a congregation, it's a network of mutual care that keeps us alive in both ways, spiritual and literal. Beloved community is when care moves through the world almost effortlessly because we've woven the threads long before the crisis. And that is our calling, to keep weaving, to build a place where no one carries their life alone, to create a community strong enough to save lives, tender enough to hold grief, and wide enough to welcome every person who walks through our doors. There are about 2,700 billionaires in the world today, and I'll be honest with you, every single one of them is poor compared to what we have here. Money can insulate you, but it cannot hold you. It cannot give you a hug. It cannot sit with you in the dark. It cannot raise your children when you can't even stand up. It cannot give you a village. And that is what it means to embrace beloved community, to step toward one another again and again, to widen the circle and let ourselves be inside of it. Embracing beloved community isn't an idea, it's a practice, it's a promise, and it's the greatest form of wealth any of us will ever know.